I'm here today to talk about video cameras, specifically the ones I use to make mediocre magic. I have gone through a lot of cameras. I've broken a lot of them. I've watched many of my cameras tumble off of mountaintops, fall into rivers, fall off of my gear, smash lenses, broken microphones. And I've learned a lot over the past 6 to 10 years about what I like in a camera when it comes to recording outdoor adventures. The first piece of advice that I would give anyone looking to record their own outdoor adventures is the best camera is the one camera that you will always have access to and you will use. I made the mistake early on of buying a giant camera. I think my first camera that I recorded one of my early episodes with was a Canon 5D Mark II. And this thing created beautiful images, but it was just monstrous. And then I thought, you know what, I really want a professional look, so I went out and I bought a Sony A7R2. And actually, I'm currently recording with that exact camera, but after taking it out once or twice, I learned that I was super afraid of breaking it. And two, it was just too big to lug around. So I mixed and matched lenses. I tried to make all sorts of compromises to make those two cameras work. But over the last 6 or 7 years, I've kind of narrowed it down to a handful of cameras that I think fit all of the necessary requirements for making a good outdoor film. The thing to remember is that a camera has nothing to do with the story you create. If you have compelling story, compelling footage, it doesn't matter really what it's recorded on. If you can communicate with that camera in an effective way, then it really doesn't matter what camera it is. And with that in mind, let's start with some of the cameras that I use. First, I want to talk about the GoPro. The GoPro has been part of my kit almost since the beginning. The stabilization early on wasn't great. Some of the contrast was horrible. The colors were horrible. But what this camera offered that almost no other camera does, especially now, is the ability to capture high quality footage in bad weather. So when it's raining, I put everything else away, but I can keep this out. And I found over time that the best way for me to carry a GoPro is using this little clip, this cheap little clip. And I can clip it onto my backpack strap. It's easy to access. Again, it meets that rule of the best camera is the one you're going to use. And since I keep this here, I use it constantly. I've tried it with tripods. I've tried to do the Excalibur sword thing where you put tripods through your waist belt. That's how I lost a camera on Mount Jefferson, and I think I've lost another GoPro that way. So I switched to this clip, and this clip has proven to be reliable and very successful at keeping my GoPro here and nowhere else. Now recently I bought this mod with the GoPro, and this goes around your GoPro and it adds the ability to get this microphone and a light. I also bought the light and the light sucked. I've used it on 2 or 3 adventures. It dies quickly. It might be a lemon, but it really does not do the trick. The microphone on this mod works really well. And that's something that I appreciated about the GoPro early on, is that the microphone could handle a little bit of wind, whereas the iPhone can't handle any amount of wind. So when you're looking for a quick, cheap, easy way to record footage real quickly, the GoPro wins over the iPhone just because of that. So this mod has been helpful. I love using it. It does add a little bulk overall, and I'm trying to keep things down to a minimum, lightweight, small, but it has proven to be totally worth it when capturing Christoph's low points and his high points. So the GoPro is the first camera I wanted to talk about. And then going up in size is this Sony RX107. I bought this camera before heading out to the hot route. I found it to record excellent footage, super accessible. I was worried about the fragility of Sony cameras. I had heard that they break down easy. Aaron, who you sometimes see in mediocre episodes, he had been using a Sony and it always seemed to be plagued with problems, but it was just so small, so compact, had a lot of good features. It had stabilization, which I always look for in a camera. And also it had the ability to zoom, which I wanted. This camera also can handle some low light. It's got good depth of field. And for its size, I thought it added a little bit of a shiny, polished production in a small package. Now you may have noticed this fuzzy thing on the side. I think I also bought this before the Hot Route. And this is a tiny little, less than $20 microphone with a dead cat on it to kill the wind. And this little addition has been invaluable. It is great because capturing sound is in some ways more important than capturing good footage. If we can't hear what you say, then we don't know exactly what's happening. So if you're planning on trying to capture a story as you go outdoors and you adventure, you need a good microphone, or in this case, just a decent microphone. And this little setup right here, for probably the last 2 years, has been with me on almost every single adventure. And I found it to be incredibly useful. It can record decent low light. It can do everything I need it to do without having to go up in size and especially in cost. Because when you consider cameras for outdoor adventure, you really do have to assume that you're gonna smash or break the camera. And if you're not all right with that, if the camera is too valuable for you to break, then you probably shouldn't be taking it out. And that's what happened to my Sony A7R II. It was just too expensive, and I didn't want to go through that argument with my wife over how and why I broke it and how I was going to replace it. Now, the biggest camera in my lineup is this right here. And this is the Sony A6500. And this actually I bought before buying the RX107. This was kind of my go-to camera for about a year or two, and I really liked it. It was manageable. It was as big as I would go. It has some stabilization. This lens is an 18 to 135, 3.5 to 5.6, so it's not high end, but it, again, you don't want high end because most likely you're going to break this. I had the A6300 with the kit lens on it, and I really liked that setup, and it worked for a while, but then I kind of wanted to upgrade because this one, again, has stabilization. It sounded like it was better stabilization. This lens has stabilization, and this allows me, when I'm extremely tired, to shoot video and not get tons of shake, because when you're out there doing adventure, you're always shaking from the cold, from fear, or from exhaustion. And so this camera is probably what I would consider taking if I'm going to do a shorter day and I really want to capture an epic look with my footage. Now, the last camera is a camera almost everybody has in their pocket, and that is their phone. This is the iPhone whatever. It's got 3 lenses, so whatever that is. It can record at 4K. It doesn't do great in low light, but it's always there. Usually, when all of my other cameras die, and they almost always do, batteries just die and die, especially in the cold. The phone is the one I record the end of the adventure with. And also this phone and other phones like it, that's what everybody else is recording their end. So if you ever see footage of me, it's almost always recorded on a cell phone. And that's fine. I tell the people who go with me, I don't expect them to record anything. But if they have to, they can use whatever recording device they think they'll use. Christoph always buys nice cameras, but almost always ends up using his phone. Matt buys even nicer cameras, but almost always ends up using his phone. And so really, the phone is enough. If you want to go up in your look and you want to get a couple extra features, maybe depth of field, some low light capabilities, weatherproofing, that's when you go out and get these other cameras. But really, you could record everything from this. You don't get zoom necessarily, and like I said, you don't get depth of field, but it's not bad. And if it's the only thing you're willing to reach in and grab, then it's the thing you should use. Microphones, as I said, are super important. And I've been using this tiny little microphone made by a company called Saramonic, which is probably just some Chinese knockoff. And like I said, it costs 20 bucks or less. And it's been good enough. But some of the other microphones that I've used along the way is I've used this gigantic beast of a microphone. And people on the trail would stare at me when I would have this sticking out of my bag with my giant A6500 bouncing along as I trail ran. And this is what I used on Mount Hood and a lot of other adventures until eventually it snapped and flew off the mountain. And I bought another one because I loved it so much. The problem obviously is the size and the fact that it has a battery. If I can avoid a battery, I will avoid a battery, because the more batteries you introduce to your system, the more likely you are to get frustrated by the need for a fresh charged battery. But this microphone, made by Sennheiser, is amazing. I mean, this is a great microphone. That episode I recorded on Hood, it was like hurricane force winds, and this dead cat and this microphone could handle it. From here on out, there's no trail. You just follow the conga line of people. But this wind is picking up just like we expected it to. I've also used this microphone once or twice, and honestly, it was so floppy and it kind of unscrewed itself and it had all these problems. I only ever used it once or twice, and then I got rid of it. But really, this cheap microphone in most cases has been enough. And then recently, this microphone on the GoPro mod has also been really good in high wind. The last episode I filmed with Aaron doing the WAP to Traverse, it was high wind, and in most cases when you could hear Aaron talking, it was with this mod.
I wouldn't say the views got worse over here.
Now the last thing I want to talk about is how you carry your cameras, because again, if the camera is not accessible, 9 times out of 10, you will not reach for it. So if you paid attention to the mediocre episodes throughout the years, you'll always see garbage hanging off of my chest. And that's because I learned early on that if it wasn't here, I wasn't going to grab the camera. I most often use this or this. This is simply a water bottle holder, and usually I'm using this right here, this system. And I put it up front, and you know what? It gives me instant access. It is a bit floppy, and I hate flop. I'm a big anti-flop guy, but it doesn't matter. It's something I'm willing to deal with if it means I can grab my camera. And then when I'm using this Sony camera here, I typically, even with the microphone, I typically put it in this little backpack strap bag. This is made by Mammut. They make 3 different sizes. This one I believe is the smallest, and it fits my GoPro and it fits this Sony. And if you pay attention, you will see it in a lot of videos. It's accessible, kind of keeps my camera warm, but the most important thing is that it makes it I can grab it and record. I hate drones. They do give a perspective that you can't get with any other camera, but the headache, the online fighting, the calls from the Forest Service almost make having a drone not worth it. Last time I crashed my drone was in the LaSalle's with Matt, and I said, you know what? I'm not buying a drone, I'm done. But then when I went to Europe, I thought, it would be nice to have a drone. So I bought the drone, the DJI Mini 2. And this is okay, this is small. The remote is just ridiculously big, but the drone itself is relatively small. So you think, oh, I can take this anywhere. It was kind of a mistake to buy this drone. It doesn't handle winds, it doesn't handle altitude. It can't do a lot of the cinematic sweeping shots that I want it to do. But you know what, it's cheap. It doesn't require me to register it because it's under 500 grams. And I tend to take it with me. Again, the rule of only use a camera you'll take out. And that Mini I will take out almost every time because it's so tiny. The last thing I want to talk about is batteries. And the battle of the batteries never ends. I'm always taking batteries, always charging batteries. I'm sure Matt will tell you stories or other people of me charging batteries all night long, just trying to stay on top of it because batteries die, especially the Sony A6500 knockoff batteries. GoPro makes some of the crappiest batteries I have ever used. Those blue batteries suck so bad. I can't even tell you how many times I have put the GoPro on my helmet, hit record, and the battery immediately dies. Doesn't matter if it's brand new, it will immediately die. GoPro is the worst at making high quality batteries. Until recently. This GoPro Enduro battery, the white one, actually does what it says it will do. It seems to last longer, and I took it on the WAP to Traverse. All day long, I used this battery. It was amazing. So hopefully this isn't some fluke. I'm considering replacing all my blue batteries with this Enduro battery. But finally, we've had a battery breakthrough with GoPro. Anyway, that's my camera lineup. I found these cameras to be the ones I use most. But again, it's not the camera that makes the story good. It's the people, it's the story that you tell, and you could do everything you want. And a lot of people do. A lot of people make a ton of good content with just a phone. So anyway, I hope this is helpful, and get out there and record.